Hey, good morning. Today we're going to take a trip up to a place known as Lee, Nevada, and California. Crosses the line over into Death Valley National Monument. It's an old abandoned ghost town, and we're going to go check out and see what's there. Not sure how many structures. There was a few mines there that they pulled out some really good gold in. One of them was called the Hayseed mine. It's about 100 miles north and west of Las Vegas. Got coffee for the road trip. Let's go do some exploring.
Hey, while we're driving out there, I'd like to remind you all to please subscribe to my YouTube channel. It costs absolutely nothing, and there's no downside to it. You're not committing yourself to anything unnecessarily. Hopefully you enjoy these videos. Thanks for your help. Here we finally arrived at the town site of Lee on the Nevada side. That's what this picture's showing. And then we followed up and went to the California side. Let's talk a little bit about history first, and then we'll go exploring the site. Lee is located at the southern end of the Funeral Mountains, where they saw an awful lot of activity in that area due to some recent finds of the chloride cliffs to the west and its proximity to rhyolite. The area was prospected for silver in the 1860s during the Breyfogle excitement. That's the legend of the lost Breyfogle mine. It holds an important place in the lore of this area. However, no major strikes were made and no camps formed during this period of time. The few settlers anywhere in the vicinity included Philander Lee and his Paiute wife named Mops and their sons Robert, Richard, and August, and daughters Clara and Dora. They had a ranch further south at Resting Springs, where Tecopa is located today along the Armagosa River. There are three distinct sites known as Lee. First one was located in Lee, Nevada. In the summer and fall of 1906, it was thought that the best mines were on the Nevada side of the state line. The promise of several producing mines at the end of 1906, the Lee boom had begun. The first mention of the town comes in November of 1906, and it was stated in an issue of the Rhyolite Bullfrog Miner. The Lee Townsite and Mining Company wasted no time in creating a platted map of the townsite of Lee. The platted map was recorded in Nye County, Nevada in February of 1907. Before the town was even platted, there was a saloon, a restaurant, and a lodging house. Lee, Nevada was mainly a tent town, and Lee, Nevada never had a post office, and it couldn't have had one with that name anyhow, since in 1882 Nevada had already had a post office named Lee. Some of the Lee, Nevada mines were worked a bit further in 1908 through 1910, but the town of Lee, Nevada disappeared completely. Today, except for a few rusted cans, it's really kind of hard to tell if you're standing on the site of what once was Lee, Nevada. It had been talked about since the end of November 1906, and by the end of January 1907, there was a rival town site with the same name established on the site of Lee's camp, only a mile and a half south from Lee, Nevada, but across the line in California. It was reported in a rhyolite newspaper. The newspaper was called Bullfrog Miner. On February 1 of 1907, it said, "There will be two towns of Lee, one in Nevada and the other in California." Lee, California also got off to a very fast start. On March 1, the newspaper, the Rhyolite Herald, gave a description. There are about 40 tents at Lee, California, and several frame houses are going up shortly. 2 restaurants, 2 rooming houses, 3 saloons, and a bakery have been established. In March of 1907, a post office was established for Lee. This fact alone raised the town above Lee, Nevada, which never had a post office. The town site was platted in March of 1907. The platted map did not follow the traditional north-south axis, and that's because the main streets parallel a course of the wash that comes out of the mountains to the south. The remains in Lee indicate that the main street was properly placed outside of the wash because it's still actually there. But the 2 streets, the west of the main, have been obliterated and gullied out by these storms that happen from time to time in Death Valley. Some of those folks that were promoters of these towns were hoping that the 2 Lees would grow together. The major concern in April of 1907 was water. Money was raised by a subscription to sink a well 200 feet in Armagosa Valley. 3 different companies were talking about piping water from Ash Meadows, Cow Creek, or from as far away as Springdale, north of Beatty. There was, of course, talk of building a pipeline, but it was never built, and the town never overcame its water supply problem. It was reported by a Rhyolite newspaper in April of 1907 that Lee, California, had its most prosperous times and could claim that there was a population of 300 or more people. On October 15, 1907, the Tidewater and Tonopah Railroad opened their new depot at Leland, Nevada, in Armagosa Valley, only 4 miles to the east of Lee. This would greatly facilitate getting supplies into the district or out of the district. Because of the financial panic, many of the mines did not work in 1908, and if the mines weren't working, there wasn't much point in being in business at Lee. So many of the businesses closed or relocated. In 1908, Lee had 12 registered voters. In 1910, there were only 10 registered voters. The post office was closed on April 1 of 1912, but that didn't even make mention of the Rhyolite Herald. The census of 1910 showed that there were only 15 people in town and only 2 businesses. Lee, California lingered on at least until the spring of 1912, when the post office was officially closed. The last of the town sites of Lee was the Lee Addition, located at the state line on the California side. It was to be a compromise between Lee, Nevada and Lee, California, and was sometimes referred to as the North Addition of Lee. It was thought that if the merchants of Lee, Nevada could be induced to move to this new town, then maybe the California merchants would also move down. Since the location was adjacent to where the road up from the expected rail connection at Leland, it would have had all the transportation advantages. This plan may have worked had the mines proved as rich as they originally thought they might be, but even as the Lee Addition was planned, Lee, Nevada and its mines were beginning to fade. This town site also was off to a quick start, according to a newspaper article in April of 1907. It stated that there are already 15 or 20 tents with a boarding house. Being at the top of the grade from Leland, Nevada, this made Lee's Addition a good location for tending to animals. So a large stone-walled corral was built. Still to this day, there's evidence of that large stone corral. So that's the crazy and confusing story behind the founding of these town sites in this immediate area. But let's not forget this also had a fantastic mining history. Many of the early claims of great promise were located in Nevada, which is why they thought it would be great to have a town on the Nevada side. None of the promises developed into producing mines, and most of them were idled by the end of 1907. According to the local Rhyolite newspapers, on the Nevada side, there was an awful lot of activity and mining companies that were being created. However, not many of them got much beyond the exploration stage. due to the panic in 1907. On the California side of the Echo Lee district, the Hayseed was the first mine located. The first mention of this mine is in November of 1904, when Richard and Gus Lee located what they called the Hayseed and State Line claims. The two former ranchers turned prospectors held on to their claims until February of 1906, when they sold them to a group out of Tonopah. Unfortunately, these guys sold their mine more than once, a practice that was not unusual for those early days. So naturally, given the complex problems involved with this, it took almost a year for a solution to be worked out, and mining did not start on the Hayseed and State Line claims until shortly before February of 1907. As work continued on the property and time progressed, the mine looked better and better. There was a tunnel that was sunk down to a distance of 100 feet in very short order. The superintendent of the mine had purchased ore sacks to prepare a shipment of the mine's high-grade ore, and a 25-horsepower hoist had been ordered for the 50-foot deep incline shaft. However, it is said that in December of 1911, the Hayseed mine, the largest producer of gold in the Lee Townsite area, was finally abandoned. Sometime during the subsequent years, the hoist in the head frame and the ore house and blacksmith shop and all other items of value were salvaged. You can see right here, it looks like it was a foundation, probably for the hoist.
I'm roaming around in the area known as Lee's Addition, which was north of the original campsite. I'm making my way south to get to the original campsite eventually. Beautiful day out, a little breezy. I'm seeing a lot of debris, a lot of rock foundations, and mostly broken glass and pottery, just because I'm sure every time they threw their stuff out, it would just break on the rocks out here. So we're going to head a little bit south up into the mountains and we'll check it out.
I'm looking northerly, just standing inside the California state line of what was known as Lee's Addition. Those hills out there that you see are on the Nevada side, and that's where some of the original claims were found. You heard me earlier in this video make reference to the Lee's Addition, where it was a good location for tending the animals. So a large stone-walled corral was built. That's what you see there in this photo. We're heading now southerly and westerly. We're following along the main road in Lee's Addition. We just passed, you could see the roads running north and south, and then the side roads running east and west. So continuing, heading south into the Funeral Mountain Range. You can see we come up here on a bridge that was running east-west to get over to some of the other rock foundations that you can see. Obviously, there were some kind of residence or businesses over there. These two foundations were about the farthest to the south in Lee's Addition that I saw. Here we are heading south and east, and you can still see some of those level areas and rock foundations. Turning and looking north, we're going down the main road of the Lee's Addition, and that bridge is crossing the wash there again. And as we continue north, you will see the rock corral again. pitched right over that rock corral again in this photo. We're heading north, just crossing into the Nevada state line. You can see that road there off to the left was actually the road that led over to Rhyolite. I also believe that this could be where the location of Lee, Nevada. You can see a few level spots, and when I was exploring on the ground down there, I found some remnants of tin cans, which leads me to believe that that's possibly where Lee, Nevada was located. Here we're looking north and east, following along the main roadway that was in Lee, California. That roadway was called California. That road that goes left to right leads up to the Hayseed mine. You can see a few of the flat spots, level areas, and maybe some of the rock foundations along the town site here. This is a shot of us heading over towards the Hayseed mine. You can see the rock tailings there. And as we get closer, you can see where the incline shaft was and perhaps where the hoist was. This is the main camp of Lee. You can see all around me. I'm kind of taking, you can see a lot of the broken glass behind me, some of the foundations. That looks like a party place right there with all that broken bottles. Lee at its peak, they claim, was somewhere around 600 people. It was short-lived, 1904 to about 1907. Kind of was in a decline in 1907 due to the recession and panic of 1907, the economic panic. Wreaked havoc on all these local mines nearby. Shut a lot of them down. As far as I know, there was not much more activity beyond 1907 in these areas. These bottles right here, you can see the seam on it. From what I understand, when you see these seams on these bottles, that means it's like 1910 or older. Usually they'll have a blown top on it as well, but this one doesn't. Kind of cool stuff like this though, I see all over. See many of these bottles, bottom, I don't know if you can read that in this. It says ABC Company, which I believe was Anheuser-Busch back in the day. Many of these glass bottles I see out here have this designation on them, so we were probably near a saloon at this time. Yeah, you can still see there's a lot of debris, especially glass debris. This could have been a saloon or some kind of a grocery store or supply store. But that's what they did. Throw it out the window and break it. That's Anheuser-Busch. There's some more tons of cans right there. So even though it was a short-lived time here at Lee, it certainly did have a lot of activity in a short period of time. A lot of cans. I'm not sure what this structure is, but we drove up this canyon as far as we can go. You can see the mine up there with a rock ledge road. I'm not going to go up there in my full-size truck, but we're going to explore around and whatever this might be. This is the trail that we took up as we're headed south towards this structure. And this is the same canyon looking north. That's the canyon we came up to get to this structure. We'll have to leave the same way we came in. Not really sure what this structure is. Must have been some kind of a loading platform with perhaps an ore bin on it. It must be associated with the mines that you see up there on the hill. Well, this concludes my presentation of the Townsites of Lee. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I love getting out there and kind of experiencing what it must be like to be out in these remote locations. I would encourage you guys to subscribe to my channel. It costs nothing to subscribe, and if you like content like this, you can see more of it. Thanks again for watching.